Welcome back to the Global Media Center. I'm Dan Sloan in Yokohama. Joining me in our studio here is Dr. V. Sumantran. He is Vice Chairman of Ashok Leyland. He joins us today. We welcome you, sir. And before we get into the kind of specifics of the relationship that Ashok Leyland and Nissan have, if I could I just get a sense of the state of the Indian market right now and the opportunities that are there?
Well, I think in the very short term, of course, the whole world is seeing a bit of the headwind that has severely afflicted Europe and much of the other parts of the world. But I would say overall, the Indian market is relatively still robust, by which I mean the overall economy is growing at a rate of about 6%. Not fast enough for those of us in India because it's down from the 8.5% that we have been used to and we really need. So there is a scaling back, but nevertheless 6% of growth is still today something encouraging. I would say that the economy is anchored by a tremendous amount of activity, consumer demand, because we have a very large and a favorable demographic. Lots of young people getting into the job force, workforce, starting up with their salaries, growing up with their careers, and naturally with aspirations to spend that money. So there is an intrinsic economy that's relatively robust. Of course, we're facing the issues of oil prices and we're facing the issues of global, the flight to the dollar and therefore the strengthening of the dollar. So there are those temporal issues. But overall, I would say that like in many of the other BRIC economies, the young population should anchor sustained growth.
The relationship that Nissan and Ashok Leyland have centers on light commercial vehicles. Already there have been some success stories, the DOS notably. Can you tell us how this has evolved and what's the outlook ahead?
Well, it started with, I remember the very first meeting that happened at the backdrop of the Hanover Motor Show. And it seemed like Ashok Leyland on the one hand was or is a 63-year-old a commercial vehicle company, well established in India. We're the largest bus maker in India, the second largest commercial vehicle manufacturer. But we had so far, I would say much like Scania, for instance, we had stayed away from the light commercial vehicle business because we had so far found it very profitable to operate out of the heavy commercial vehicle business. Over the recent years, over the last decade, we have certainly as a group wanted to look at how do we address the light commercial vehicle business, and we felt that any attempt to address that segment must come from or on the basis of a broad product range and therefore an ability to frequently cycle products. We didn't want to make a single shot entry into this. Fortunately, at about the same time when we started our very first discussions with Nissan, it appeared that Nissan also was very focused on its LCV strategy, which as I have come to learn is a very strong part of the whole group. And they were certainly looking to grow into new geographies, leverage new partnerships. I must say that there has been a particularly easy journey for this JV, perhaps in part due to the ethos that we've seen at Nissan. I think they seem to be intrinsically geared towards making alliances work. I think it's a mindset that recognizes that partnering works, and as a result, very quickly from a start, I remember the handshake between Mr. Goan and Mr. Hindu Jha. It was late in 2007, and literally 3 years from then we had a JV, we had a product developed, we had a plant with tools and plant in operation. So I think it's been a relatively quick start, and I must credit I would say the compatible cultures between Nissan and Ashok Leyland for allowing this to happen so soon.
My understanding is that there is a 3-platform lineup of LCVs out there or so. What can you tell us about production plans ahead and anything that might be in the pipeline?
As you mentioned, we have made a start with the first of the product, the Dost, which is a small LCV positioned in India as a 1.25 ton payload vehicle. And fortunately for both of us, it's off to a good start. It's rare these days, but we do have a 3-month waiting list for the product. So we've been encouraged by the first start that we made. At the Delhi Auto Expo this year, we already unveiled the second and the third platforms. The second will be the Nissan X11M, platform, which will come out as both the Evalia for Nissan as well as the Style for Ashok Leyland. And the third would be the bigger LCV, F24, the partner, as we call it in Ashok Leyland, or the Cabstar and the Atlas here. So I think we've already got the first three products lined up. They're the first ones launched, and we've already had many ideas for very good variants to come off that platform. The Evalia is close to the end of its development cycle, so it's out in production very shortly. And work is very well underway for the F24 as well. So I think we feel confident so far that whatever the two companies have defined as a business plan looks within reach.
Among the many hats you wear, one is for Defiance Technologies. In his recent visit there, our EVP Andy Palmer stopped by and visited what I guess you could say is kind of a social media station, if you will. Can you explain more what it does and how it shares the information or intelligence among the partners?
Defiance is for us a combination of a think tank and an engineering and an IT service company. We recognized a few years ago the power of social media, information, data, and IT. And we put together this company because not only for our alliance partners but for third parties as well, we began to see the value of information that is used in the world today. And if you look at the broad spectrum of information, in the case of the social media center, we are actually tracking opinions. Today, I certainly can't qualify, but the younger generation today are extremely active in terms of publicly sharing their views, their opinions, their moods. I think there is a wealth of information floating out there. And if we're able to make sense out of this information, there is very, very valuable data that a manufacturer like Nissan can take away. And this can range from anything from, what are people saying about our products? What are people saying about our services? What kind of rallies do they like to attend? What are their tastes in terms of television programs so that media spends can be targeted? Any hot button issue, and you literally get this as real-time data. This is the marvelous element of this technology. So rather than what we used to do as market research and commission a field of activity and wait for 3 months for data to be analyzed, here literally real-time data flows in, and it's extremely enlightening, and it's particularly useful to a company that chooses to listen to what's going on. I think it requires a mindset to say, I will train to listen to what's going on, and once you've made that mindset adjustment, there's a wealth of information out there.
Finally, sir, you're among your many titles, you're executive vice chairman, I believe, of the automotive group charged with expansion. What looks interesting to you right now strategically, be it India or elsewhere?
As a group, we have already invested in our core area, which is transportation and mobility. And certainly within this, we have included its definition, things like powertrain systems, things like certain systems of electronics. We have recently been investing in what I believe are 3 strategic areas. The first is electronics. So we are gearing up for the kind of content we're beginning to see in vehicles. The second is environmental technologies. We realize that as we go forward, whether it's hybrid and clean vehicles, in fact, I rode in today in a Fuga hybrid, very impressive, I must say. So whether it is those kinds of vehicles or indeed technologies that are used to reduce emissions. So we've invested in our own companies in Europe to be in this field. Certainly what we just spoke about, IT, data, analytics, and information management is a very important future. We've also gone into areas where, for instance, in India, there's a huge amount of infrastructure investment. So we're building roads and ports and bridges and highways at a pace never seen in India. So we've gone into investment in construction equipment. We have made investments in shoring up our defense mobility. That is another important area. And we have been taking a look at aerospace. So I think we've got a full plate.
Well, we'll leave it there. Dr. V. Sumantran, Vice Chairman of Ashok Leyland, we thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you.
For the Media Center, I'm Dan Sloan.